What happens if the world is in a recession? What happens to the world economy if there is a recession? It's one of the scariest questions facing the global community right now. Welcome to our channel, What Happens? A recession is a time of general economic decline. It can last from 6 months to several years when the GDP declines for 2 or more consecutive quarters. People stop buying cars, houses, gadgets, and everything else they want or need when this happens. Are you ready for the ups and downs of your money that a recession brings? Get ready, because we're about to go into a wild ride through the ups and downs of the economy. So let's get started. What is a recession? A recession occurs when a significant, broad, and persistent drop in economic activity occurs. For simplicity's sake, a recession is defined as 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth in the gross domestic product, GDP. However, more precise formulations do exist. The NBER uses a variety of indicators, including non-farm payrolls, capacity utilization, and retail sales, to determine whether or not an economy is in a recession. This is much more than the simpler but less accurate measure of 2 quarters of negative GDP. The 2020 recession. According to a report published by NBER in June 2020, the expansion of the US economy reached its highest point in February 2020. It entered a recession brought on by the COVID-19 epidemic. The economic expansion that began in June 2009 lasted 128 months, making it the longest period of unbroken growth in the history of the United States. Before this expansion, the previous record was held by the 120-month expansion between 1991 and 2001. The National Bureau of Economic Research, NBER, concluded in July 2021 that the recession that occurred in 2020 was the shortest, lasting only 2 months, with economic activity reaching its lowest point in April of that year. What happens during a recession? Many people in the United States are becoming increasingly concerned about the possibility of another economic downturn due to the combination of rising inflation rates and negative gross domestic product, GDP data. This may be a legitimate cause of concern, given that the economy of the United States appears to be decelerating after experiencing a period of moderate expansion. Context can be gained by having a complete understanding of what a recession is. Concisely, a recession is when the economy's performance diminishes for several months, defined by GDP contraction, increased unemployment rates, and reduced consumer spending. Recessions can last from anywhere from a few weeks to several years. People's day-to-day lives are susceptible to being significantly altered when the economy is in a recession. Everything, from the basics like groceries to luxuries like shoes, tends to be priced higher, and workers could have less assurance in their employment. This is what you need to understand to weather the storm. When determining whether or not the United States is currently experiencing a recession, the National Bureau of Economic Research, NBER Business Cycle Dating Committee, considers some indicators, including those listed here. The impact of economic downturns on industry. During economic downturns, businesses typically reduce their output to combat the growing cost of raw materials, resulting in a decrease in manufacturing activity. This move may result in a decline in the volume of exports and general slowing of economic activity. For instance, business in the United States cut back on production and laid off workers during the Great Recession, leading to a steep decline in the country's industrial activity. During this particular recession, the number of people employed in manufacturing fell by 10%, and the manufacturing sector did not begin to recover until 2010, well after the official conclusion of the recession. Impact on investments. When there is an economic downturn, the stock market often experiences a decrease, resulting in individuals suffering losses in their investment portfolios. This can also lead to a reduction in confidence in the market, which may cause some individuals to stop investing entirely. Plus, the fall in house prices may result in losses in equity, as well as a decline in the value of real estate holdings. Government transfers minus personal income. When the economy is in a recession, there's a stagnation or reduction in income because firms reduce their workforce or the number of hours their employees work. The wealthy are typically less affected by a recession than the middle or lower classes. Thus, income disparity may worsen as a result. Spending by consumers. One component of consumer spending is known as retail sales, which refers to the total amount of money customers spend on merchandise and services. Retail sales tend to fall when the economy is in a recession because consumers have less money to spend. The potential negative effects of falling retail sales on the economy can be significant. To lower their expenses, firms could have to let their employees go, and some enterprises might even go out of business. Employment. To cut costs, many businesses reduce their workforces during economic downturns, which leads to a rise in the unemployment rate. For example, The US Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that the unemployment rate peaked in April of 2020 at 14.7%. This was the highest point of the recession that occurred during the COVID-19 pandemic. How a recession may affect you. A period of economic downturn marked by a drop in gross domestic product and GDP, employment, and trade is referred to as a recession. Individuals experience difficulties during a recession, such as a drop in income, the loss of a job, and a reduction in their ability to spend money. Businesses will also need help, which could result in fewer hires, lower wages, and fewer investments. Plus, the stock market could experience a collapse, which would result in financial losses for portfolios and a reduction in investors' faith in the market. It is essential to have a sound financial plan, which should include an emergency fund to help the economic problems brought by a recession. What are the signs of a recession? Several economic signs can be used to predict a recession. Gross domestic product, GDP. A steady drop in GDP is a sign that an economic downturn is coming. Employment. A drop in jobs or a rise in unemployment can be signs that a recession is coming. Inflation. A steady drop in inflation can mean that the people are buying fewer goods and services, which could be a sign that a recession is coming. Industrial production. A slowing economy and a recession can be predicted by a steady drop in industrial production. Performance of the stock market. Big drops in the stock market can be a sign that a recession is coming. Rates on loans. The Federal Reserve can affect the economy by changing interest rates. The Federal Reserve may lower interest rates when the economy slows down to get people to borrow and spend. On the other hand, the Federal Reserve may decide to increase interest rates if the economy is expanding too rapidly. Important economic signs. Leading economic indicators, like the Conference Board's Index of Leading Economic Indicators, can predict an uprising recession by looking at data of unemployment, housing stats, and consumer confidence. What causes a recession? Several things, such as a drop in consumer confidence, high interest rates, a crash in the stock market, or the bursting of asset bubbles, can cause recessions. Most things that slow down the economy can cause a recession if nothing is done to stop them. Loss of confidence in the market. When consumers lose faith in the economy, they stop buying, which can start a cycle of bad things. If the demand for goods and services goes down enough, businesses will make less money and will need to be able to hire fewer people. As a result, the economy will create less new employment, sales will continue to decrease, and most businesses will reduce output to combat the weakening demand. Reducing output also means fewer available jobs, which in turn increases the rate of unemployment and discourages discretionary spending. Credit crunch. A credit crunch happens when there are suddenly insufficient funds to lend, so there are fewer loans. For example, during the financial crisis of 2008, banks lost a lot of money because so many mortgages went into default and they had bought bad mortgage debt. Because of these losses, they needed more time to lend out money. When lenders became more cautious, interest rates go up and less money is available for businesses and consumers. That could cause an economic downturn. Deregulation. When lawmakers take away important protections, they can cause a recession. When the Garn-State-Germain Depository Institutions Act was passed in 1982, and it set the stage for savings and loan crisis and the recession that followed. This and the Depository Institutions Deregulation and Monetary Control Act of 1980 remove restrictions on savings and loan associations' loan-to-value ratios and interest rate caps, a problem with savings and loans caused by the recession of 1990. More than 1,000 banks with total assets of $500 billion failed. High interest rates. The cost of borrowing money increases when interest rates rise, reducing the likelihood that individuals and organizations will use borrowed funds for big-ticket purchases or investment opportunities. Because people spend less, there is less demand for goods and services. When businesses cut back on production because demand decreased, they hired few people. As spending goes down in the economy, inflation goes down. But if the economy shrinks too much because of high interest rates, that can cause a recession. A stock market crash. A recession can happen if the stock market crashes. When the price of stocks goes down, investors often have less money to put into businesses. If businesses can't get enough money for growth and running costs, they might have to lay off workers or stop hiring. US history's biggest stock market crashes happened right before a recession started. These include the stock market crash of 1929, also called Black Tuesday, the financial crisis of 2008, and the short-term crash caused by COVID-19. Recessions can have a big effect on both the economy and people's finances. Knowing what causes a recession can help people prepare for the problems of a slowing economy. Monitoring economic indicators, interest rates, and leading economic indicators can give you valuable information that can help you make good financial decisions. So that's all for today's video. If you like this video, click like and the bell buttons. We'll have another video for you soon. Take care until then.